Was Bruno Mars' big name really not enough to save his two nieces on America's Got Talent? This is the story of Nyjah Music and Zyah Rhythm, two young siblings from North Shore, Oahu, Hawaii, who came not to hide behind Bruno Mars' famous name, but to prove their own talent. Here at Brunomars, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe now, because their journey ended with a huge surprise. From 4 yes votes and Simon Cowell's challenge to Mel B's red buzzer, what really happened on the AGT stage? And why did America's final decision leave fans stunned? Watch until the very end. There was something different about the moment two young teenagers stepped onto the America's Got Talent stage without using their famous family connection as their main weapon. They were still incredibly young. They came from North Shore, Oahu, Hawaii. And they had a family connection to one of the biggest superstars in the world, Bruno Mars. But when the stage lights came on and millions of eyes turned toward them, Bruno Mars could not sing a single note for them. Their own voices had to speak. And that was exactly what Nyjah Music and Zyah Rhythm tried to do from the very beginning. These two young sisters came to America's Got Talent Season 21 with a simple but enormous dream: to prove that they deserved to be there because of their own talent. Their connection to Bruno Mars certainly attracted public attention, but their journey through the competition turned out to be far more difficult than many people might have expected. In fact, it was quite the opposite. They faced criticism, pressure, the challenge of overcoming nervousness, and the demand to grow stronger with every performance. Then came the red buzzer for Mel B, one of the most tense moments of their entire journey. And now that their journey has come to an end, the question is no longer whether they made it to the semifinals. We already know the answer. Nyjah Music and Zyah Rhythm were eliminated after America's Got Talent announced the results on August 26, 2026. Out of 11 acts competing during quarterfinals night 2, only 3 received enough votes to advance to the semifinals. Nyjah and Zyah were among the 7 acts whose journey ended at the quarterfinal stage. But before reaching that shocking ending, there was a long journey that made their names increasingly familiar to America's Got Talent viewers. Everything began on June 9, 2026. When Nyjah and Zyah first stood on the America's Got Talent stage, they did not arrive with a famous cover song chosen simply to guarantee an easy reaction from the audience. Instead, they brought an original song of their own. Heartbeat. And that was not a small decision. Performing an original song on a stage as enormous as America's Got Talent means introducing yourself not only as a singer, but as a musician with your own identity. Heartbeat became their first introduction to the AGT audience. The official America's Got Talent video captured the moment the two teenagers took a major step onto the stage with their own original song. Simon Cowell and the other judges saw something special in their performance, and their journey continued. But there was one thing that made their story even more interesting. They were related to Bruno Mars. That name is enormous. Bruno Mars is not simply a famous singer. He is one of the most successful entertainers of his generation, with songs recognized around the world. So when the public learned that Nyjah Music and Zyah Rhythm were Bruno Mars' nieces through their mother's side of the family, attention toward the two young Hawaiian performers naturally became even greater. But on the AGT stage, they still had to face one simple reality. The judges were not going to give them a ticket to the next round simply because of their family connection. They had to sing. They had to perform. And they had to prove themselves. During that first audition, Nyjah and Zyah managed to receive 4 yes votes from the judges. 4 yes votes. 2 young sisters. 1 original song. And a journey that had only just begun. But America's Got Talent is not an easy competition. Getting 4 yes votes during the audition is only one door opening. After that, every stage becomes more difficult. The audience grows larger, the pressure increases, and every performance is compared with other contestants, who also dream of becoming the winner. Then came the round they may never forget. Judges Callbacks. Season 21 of America's Got Talent introduced this new format as an additional stage after the auditions. The judges selected a number of contestants to perform again and prove whether they truly deserved a place in the live shows. Cowell selected Nyjah and Zyah Rhythm as one of the acts he wanted to see again. And this was where their journey began to change. This time, they had to perform Daisies. But their first attempt did not go the way they had hoped. Cowell stopped the performance. Imagine the pressure they must have felt at that moment. They had already passed their audition. They had already received 4 yes votes. They knew that this second opportunity was extremely important. But in the middle of their performance, Simon felt that what he was seeing was not enough. He asked them to start again. A moment like that could easily destroy the confidence of a young performer. But this was where Nyjah and Zyah showed something more important than simply having good voices. They tried again. And the second attempt was significantly better. According to TV Insider, Cowell felt that their first performance was not working and asked them to start over. After the restart, the difference in their performance became much clearer. Pooh Bear described the difference as night and day, while Normani pointed out that because of their young age, they still had plenty of room to grow. And eventually, Cowell chose them. Nyjah and Zyah Rhythm earned a place in the live shows. They were one step closer to their dream. But were they ready? That question had actually already appeared during the judges' callbacks. Simon himself saw them as young performers who still needed to develop. They had the voices. They could harmonize. But they also carried nervousness and lacked the stage experience that comes with years of performing. And perhaps that is exactly what made their journey so fascinating. They were not finished superstars. They were young artists still learning. 2 sisters discovering their musical identity. 2 teenagers who had to grow in front of cameras and millions of viewers. Then came the live shows. And finally, on August 25, 2026, Nyjah and Zyah Rhythm once again stood on the massive America's Got Talent stage for quarterfinals night 2. This time, they chose a very familiar song. I Swear. A song that requires vocal control, harmony, confidence, and the ability to command the stage. And this was where the situation began to change. They wanted to show their progress. They wanted to prove that they were no longer the same nervous teenagers who had first entered the competition. But the judges' reactions were not what they had hoped for. Melby pressed the red buzzer. 1 sound. 1 X. And suddenly, the atmosphere changed. A red buzzer is more than just a visual effect on the show. In the context of the competition, it represents a judge's feeling that the performance has not reached the standard they expected. Melby then delivered a very direct critique. She acknowledged that Nyjah and Zyah could sing and were capable of harmonizing. But in her opinion, they still needed more time and experience. She also felt that by the quarterfinal stage, they should already have delivered their very best performance. The issue was not simply their vocal ability. It was their energy, their confidence, their passion, and their ability to make the audience feel that they truly wanted that place in the competition. Howie Mandel had a similar reaction. He saw their potential, but he also saw nervousness. And in his view, experience was something that would help them grow. Sofia Vergara also believed they needed to continue working and following their dreams, while acknowledging that they still needed more experience. So something very interesting happened that night. No one was saying that Nyjah and Zyah had no talent. What was being questioned was whether they were already ready for a competition as demanding as America's Got Talent. And that is a very important distinction. Because sometimes a performer can have a beautiful voice but still lack the experience needed to turn a song into a performance that makes an audience impossible to ignore. That was the challenge Nyjah and Zyah faced. They were still very young. They were still learning. But America's Got Talent does not have unlimited time to wait for someone to develop. The quarterfinal stage is where contestants must prove that they are ready now, not someday. And when Mel B pressed the red buzzer, the debate began. Some viewers felt that the criticism was too harsh. After all, they are still teenagers. Some fans believe the sisters should have been given more time to grow. But other viewers agreed with Mel B. Online reactions became divided. TV Insider reported that some viewers defended Mel B's decision and saw the criticism as a reality of the entertainment industry, where expectations are extremely high. And this is where the name Bruno Mars once again became part of the conversation. Because whenever someone is connected to a global superstar, people naturally begin asking questions. Did they get an opportunity because of their talent? Or because of their connections? Were they truly ready? Or were they brought onto a stage as big as AGT too soon? These questions are difficult to avoid. But there is one fact that should not be forgotten. They still had to perform. They still had to go through the audition process. They still had to face the judges' callbacks. And they still had to earn the judges' decisions. Even when Simon Cowell selected them for the live shows, that did not mean their journey would become easier. The standards only became higher. And the quarterfinals proved it. After their performance of I Swear, their fate was placed in the hands of America's voters. At this stage, the judges' opinions were not the only factor that mattered. America's Got Talent gives the public the power to determine which contestants advance through voting. And the results finally arrived on August 26th. 3 contestants from quarterfinals night 2 received tickets to the semifinals. Veronika Gorishkova, Come Here, and Gino Ploger advanced. Meanwhile, 7 other contestants had to go home. And Nyjah Music and Zyah Rhythm were among them. A heartbreaking ending. Because only one day earlier, they were still standing on the quarterfinal stage. They still had a chance. They still had a dream. But in a competition like America's Got Talent, one performance can change everything. They had already completed a remarkable journey. From North Shore, Oahu. From a family connected to one of the biggest names in the music industry. From an audition featuring Heartbeat, receiving 4 yes votes. Then facing the pressure of Simon Cowell during the judges' callbacks. Singing Daisies. Being stopped. Being asked to start again. Trying one more time. Getting another opportunity. Advancing to the live shows. Then facing the quarterfinals. Performing I Swear. Receiving the red buzzer from Mel B. Hearing criticism from the judges. And ultimately being eliminated through America's vote. If we look only at the final result, some people might say their journey failed. But is it really that simple? Didn't they accomplish something much harder than simply appearing on television? They dared to step onto the stage. They dared to perform their own original song. They dared to show the world their own abilities. They accepted criticism. They were asked by Simon Cowell to restart their performance, and they did it. They came back. They improved. And they reached the quarterfinals of America's Got Talent while still incredibly young. Perhaps their journey on season 21 has ended. But their journey as musicians certainly does not have to end here. In fact, this could be the real beginning. Because the criticism they received could become one of their most valuable lessons. Mel B said they needed experience. Howie said they needed time. Sophia told them to continue working and following their dreams. Those words may sound harsh when spoken on such a huge stage. But for young musicians, an experience like this can become a school that money cannot buy. Imagine Nyjah and Zyah returning to a major stage several years from now. more confident, more mature, stronger vocally, more comfortable moving on stage, more capable of commanding an audience. And then people remember their journey on America's Got Talent. Perhaps the red buzzer from Mel B will no longer look like the end. Perhaps it will look like a turning point. Of course, we do not know what will happen next. And that is exactly what makes their stories so fascinating. They may have failed to secure a semifinal spot, but they gained something that many young musicians struggle to obtain: real experience performing on one of the world's biggest talent competition stages. And there is another important point that should never be forgotten. They did not come to America's Got Talent simply with the name Bruno Mars. They came with their own song, their own voices, their own dreams. And even though their family connection to Bruno Mars brought additional attention, the AGT stage ultimately gave them the same challenge faced by every other contestant. Could they make the audience believe? Could they impress the judges? Could they transform their potential into a truly unforgettable performance? For season 21, the answer turned out to be not quite yet. But not yet does not mean never. And perhaps that is the biggest message behind Nyjah Music and Zyah Rhythm's journey. They are young. They still have time. They still have opportunities to learn. And they still have music to share beyond the America's Got Talent stage. Ironically, they may have entered AGT hoping to prove that they were more than simply Bruno Mars' nieces. And after all the attention, criticism, controversy, and voting results, they now have something that truly belongs to them. A journey. An experience. A story. Proof that they stood on the America's Got Talent stage and were brave enough to put their talent in front of the world. For season 21, their competition is over. But their story may not be. Because the music industry is filled with stories of artists who once failed, were rejected, were criticized, or were told they were not ready, only to return later with something much bigger. And perhaps one day, the names Nyjah Music and Zyah Rhythm will be heard again. Not simply because they are Bruno Mars' nieces, but because they succeeded in creating identities of their own. And that leaves us with one powerful question. Did America make the right decision by eliminating Nyjah Music and Zyah Rhythm from America's Got Talent? Or was Mel B right that they simply were not ready to compete at that level yet? And if these two sisters return someday with greater experience, confidence, energy, and passion, will the world still see them as Bruno Mars' nieces? Or will we finally see them simply as Nyjah Music and Zyah Rhythm, two young artists capable of standing on their own?
Your dreams will